Thank you for joining us. We'll be getting started here in just a couple minutes. Feel free to enjoy the music and the slideshow. We'll be getting started here around 12:35. Hello. Thank you everyone for joining us today for our June Hub 101. Woo! Welcome back and thank you all. Thank you for joining Austin Coming Together, the Austin Community Hub, and this month's virtual Hub 101 guest, Jane Addams Resource Corporation. We are so excited to have you join us. As always, my name is Janelle Martin and I am the Hub Coordinator here with Austin Coming Together. As some of you may be familiar with ACT already, ACT is a backbone agency for collective impact, serving a network of nonprofit, faith-based, public, and private member organizations. As part of ACT, the Austin Community Hub is a safe space to intentionally and thoughtfully engage disconnected families and individuals in collaboration with our member base to securely connect community members to holistic services, such as career counseling, housing, continuing education, legal assistance, and much, much more. As part of these services, our job is to inform community about the different resources and programs that we have access to, so we created Hub 101s. Today, we will be discussing how you've got the skills and JARC has the training with Jane Addams Resource Corporation, who supports healthy communities and economies by teaching low-income adults and workers the skills they need to earn a living wage. But they go above and beyond basic skills training. They also connect job seekers with good jobs in the manufacturing sector and foster the life skills that create a path out of poverty. So as usual, we're going to start with a quick presentation from Jane Addams Resource Corporation. We are joined by JARC's Director of Training Services, Miss Emily Peters. She's going to be going through a quick presentation with us. If able, her coworker, Miss Natalie, who is in charge of JARC's Resource and Partnerships Specialist, she'll be hopping on as well. They're going to run through a quick presentation, and then we've got about 20 minutes set aside for Q&A. So if you're joining us on Facebook Live, please feel free to toss those questions, comments, concerns, anything you've got in the Facebook Live chat. We'll be sure to address those. With that, I want to go ahead and pass it off to Emily. Emily, give me just a second to get your PowerPoint up, but we should be good to go.
Well, I can start by introducing myself, I guess, while we get that ready. So again, I'm Emily Peters. I'm the Director of Training Services with the Addams Resource Corporation, or we go by JARC for short. So we, as Janelle mentioned, provide free manufacturing training and job placement in the metalworking skills industries. And we also offer quite a few additional services that I'll get into as well. So I did want to start briefly. I have a quick video to show you all. So it's specifically focusing on our West Side location that we relaunched in September of 2020. And it's a nice video because you get to not only see the training space, but also meet some of the instructors and kind of get some background information about how we came to be serving the West Side. So Janelle, if you don't mind, if you can share that video.
Yes, let me get that up real quickly. Oh. One moment. Okay.
Austin is sort of this gateway into Chicago and out of Chicago. JARC seemed like a really good fit in terms of being able to help successfully connect residents to opportunities that would put them on a fast track to a job.
A number of years ago, we were looking at our demographics, and we had realized that we had a number of trainees that were coming from the West Side, from the Austin neighborhood, but the larger West Side, to our North Side location. And in addition to that, we have a number of manufacturing partner companies that also are located on the West Side of Chicago. So we began to partner very intentionally with Austin-based organizations and nonprofits, Austin Coming Together, the West Side Health Authority, Manufacturing Renaissance. These are organizations that have very deep roots on the West Side.
So the partnership between JARC and Austin Coming Together actually started several years ago when we were looking for more partners around workforce development that could really connect individuals to living wage careers.
We're able to take advantage of the services that JARC offers and come away with workers that are ready to go and skilled and trained. So it's been a win-win for both JARC and us.
I was on the bus, this is like 2011, with my daughter, and I seen someone I knew from high school, and he asked, what are you doing with your life? And that was like, so I'd never been asked nothing like that, you know, like so spot on. And I honestly told him I was like, nothing, like I have no clue right now. So he told me that he went to Addams Resource Corporation for the CNC department. I went home, I looked it up. I think I filled out an application that Thursday. I actually interviewed with Guy, which was really weird because he was the president of the company at the time. I think by that Friday they called me, like accepted me, and that Monday I was like already in training, and I just kind of took off from there.
Advanced manufacturing is a industry that has very low barriers to entry.
My name is Shakir Mutes. I'm a senior skills instructor here at JARC, and I teach students enrolled in the JARC Welding Program, as well as companies who come to JARC to get further training for their employees. My welding career started in 2008. Haven't had a problem finding a job since. Welding gives you a second chance because it allows you to earn a livable wage without risking your freedom. It also puts you into a brotherhood of hardworking individuals that actually keep this country moving. It's the perfect career for someone who's made mistakes in their past. Felonies do not disqualify you from finding good employment in welding.
We really want to be the sort of premier manufacturing training provider in the Austin neighborhood, and so that's why we've positioned ourselves with some of these groups to really, kind of plant our foot here, have a big presence here on the west side.
I love how JARC really seeks to find mutual benefit in not only serving individuals that are job seekers and looking for careers, but also working with the organizations and the companies that would hire those individuals to make sure that their needs and demands are being met, so that now it can be more of a mutual benefit for all stakeholders.
We want people coming into this saying, I'm choosing this as my career, and this is what I'm going to be doing, for the foreseeable future in my career.
Do you want to learn a new career? Come see me.
Perfect, thank you. So I really kind of like that video because I think it kind of talks about like our history and sort of why, we're so invested in serving Austin and the greater West Side, and you kind of got to meet our instructors, which is also nice. So if you can move to the next slide, perfect. So like I mentioned earlier, we do offer free advanced manufacturing training and job placement services to individuals who are currently unemployed. They might also be underemployed. Maybe you're looking to start a new career, advance in a current career. We are open to everybody. And we also offer quite a few wraparound support services in addition to the technical training. So that includes things like employment coaching and financial coaching, which I'll get into a little bit more later. We also do digital skills instruction, income support screenings. We'll also help pay for any kind of work gear that's needed. So whether that's safety gear for welders or steel toe boots. And we also cover transportation to get you to the training program every day as well. We also offer job placement services, retention coaching, and then also emergency supports. So that could be, anything that possibly comes up while somebody's in the training program. If they need help, maybe paying for rent or a utility bill, we usually have funds available that we can kind of help support in that way too. You can move to the next slide. Perfect. So I think the video kind of touched upon this a little bit, but why we really want to focus on careers in manufacturing, there's a lot of reasons. Mainly, I think one of the greatest benefits is actually in the pay. Individuals coming out of any of our training programs on average, they're starting anywhere from about $18 to $20 an hour, but that also depends on, prior experience. It depends on the company. And a lot of times too, companies do offer overtime where you're making time and a half. So there are a lot of nice wages that usually come with these careers. There's also typically a lot of nice benefits as well that companies offer. So in addition to kind of like, healthcare and things like that, a lot of companies are offering, matched retirement savings accounts. Some companies offer tuition reimbursement if people want to go back and get more education. And actually, Friedman Seating Company that we're located within, they have access to a gym for all their employees. So there's all these really nice kind of incentives to sort of working in the industry as well. Shift work to some people is really valuable as well. Typically in manufacturing, there could be 3 different shifts, a first, second, and a third shift. So for some people, especially maybe if, they have families or other obligations, sometimes it's nice to have different options so you could be home more depending on, what's needed. There's also quite a few opportunities for advancement in the industry. I have a slide coming up that kind of outlines it more specifically, but basically the more education and training you can get, you can continue to kind of move along that career ladder. There's also quite a bit of employer demand. So like we kind of mentioned in the video, specifically on the West Side, there are quite a few company partners local that are pretty regularly hiring for these kinds of careers. And even if someone, depending on their schedule and their interest, even, right outside of Chicago and some of those like suburban neighborhoods, there's quite a bit of manufacturing as well. There's also a lot of new technologies that are emerging. So some of the companies we work with, are looking into more like additive manufacturing, like 3D printing. You got to see in the video, they were using a robotic welder. So there's a lot of different kind of new technologies to kind of learn once you get into the industry as well. And then the other really nice perk is sort of the non-traditional education and training. So obviously our programs, they're a lot shorter than, a typical university or college course, because we want to get you the information and the skills that you need so you can get out there and start working right away. And obviously they're free, so you don't have to take out loans or anything like that to access them. So you can move to the next slide. Okay, so this is kind of an example of that like career ladder that I mentioned earlier. So you can kind of see starting at the very top in the contextualized reading and math program. Probably, I'll get into it a little bit more, but about 50% of our applicants start off in that program and then they move into one of the advanced training programs. But you can kind of see, for example, the first line as like somebody who goes into our CNC or Computer Numerical Control program. Typically entry level, they probably, unless they had prior experience, would start off as a CNC operator, but we give you the skills and the credentials so that you could, once you gain more experience, move into being like a setup or even a CNC programmer. And then you can kind of see as you continue to move down, that could also lead into supervisory and potentially ultimately engineering roles within companies. A lot of times for those roles, though, you may have to go back to school. But like I mentioned, there are quite a few companies that offer tuition reimbursement. So potentially you could start in our program, work for a company and go all the way up to possibly an engineering position and essentially pay nothing out of your pocket, which would be the best, best case scenario. And then you can even kind of see too, sort of the third purple box, focusing on like our welding program, for example. People typically are going to start off as more of a MIG production type welder, but you can see the more skills you get learning TIG welding or other kinds of welding could lead to supervisory roles, and then ultimately, continued welding engineering and other types of occupations. So you can move to the next slide, please. Perfect. So these are some of the more common kind of like questions or concerns that people usually ask about starting our program or working in the industry. So for our training programs, we do not require a high school diploma or GED. It of course is helpful, especially if you want to, keep advancing along that career path, but it's not required. And a lot of the companies we work with also do not require it. So that is usually, pretty accessible for most people. Prior records of arrest or conviction are not an issue for us or the companies we work with. The only thing we cannot work with is anybody with like sexual offenses. But other than that, anything else we have no issues with. And in a lot of cases, we have partnerships with legal aid services. So in some cases, JARC is actually able to cover the costs of sealing or expungement for some types of offenses. We also have referrals for like childcare, housing, even if somebody needs access to like internet or laptops, we usually have resources and can help people get those kinds of needs met. And like I mentioned earlier, no prior experience is required. I'd say majority of the people in our program have worked in other industries, and they decided to make a career change and come to learn manufacturing, and also the great benefits that we talked about earlier. So if you can move to the next slide. Perfect. So there's definitely, I would say, some like physical demands to working in the manufacturing sector. So typically, you may be lifting up to 50 pounds a day, multiple times throughout the day. Also, especially for welders, you could be standing on your feet most of your shift. So making sure like you're, kind of physically able to meet those demands. And then also kind of understanding a company's overtime policy. So in a lot of cases, there will be overtime. It just depends if the company has it as a mandatory or voluntary. So keeping that in mind too, which of course overtime means more pay. So that's in some cases a nice perk. And then also, being aware that you could be working in pretty hot conditions, especially on a day like today. Most of the manufacturers, they're not air conditioned. So, just being aware that, there could be some of those physical requirements. So things that are really helpful, obviously having good vision is important. And in a lot of cases too, JARC can actually help individuals if they need to get a new prescription or get new eyeglasses, because being able to, see really small details is going to be very important. Also, good hand-eye coordination and ability to kind of multitask, possibly for machining, you might be operating multiple machines at the same time. Another thing that we always kind of touch on here is about drug testing. So JARC, we do not drug test anybody, of course, unless there's, some accident or incident that comes up, but we don't do that. But we tell everybody once they are applying for jobs, majority of the companies are going to drug test you. So that's something to be aware of. And, we understand too, marijuana is legal in Illinois, which is great, but most companies are still going to be testing for that and possibly could rescind a job offer if somebody does test positive for that. And that's mainly because, the nature of manufacturing, you're working around heavy machinery, welding, you're going to be near hot flames. So it's still a liability issue for a lot of companies. So that's just something to be aware of that, going into a career like this, for some people, it may just be a lifestyle change that they'd have to commit to. So just to be aware of that. So you can move to the next slide, please. Perfect. So then I'll get into a little bit here, the actual technical training programs. So you can move to the next slide. Perfect. So I kind of think I touched upon most of these a little bit already, but we do have 3 advanced manufacturing training programs. So those are going to be the Computer Numerical Control or CNC training program. We also have a welding program. And then our newest program that we just launched a few months ago is actually a mechanical assembly. So I kind of mentioned at the beginning, probably about 50% of the people that come into the program do start in our manufacturing bridge program. And that's going to be based off of reading and math assessment scores. So it's just kind of like a refresher course some people end up taking. So some of the nice features of our training programs, we do have pretty small class sizes. On average, I'd say there's anywhere from maybe like 6 to 10 people in training at any given time. And the nice thing is we do what we call open entry, open exit. So people are always starting the program at different times. So we don't operate with like cohorts or semesters. If you apply for the program, go through all the steps, potentially any Monday that we're open, somebody new could be starting the program. So it's kind of nice, and it kind of leads to what we call a simulated work environment. So, you know, potentially you could have someone who's been in the program for a couple months, could be helping train, you know, a new person who just started that week. So it's kind of nice. You get to learn from your peers and obviously also from the instructors. We do offer, like I mentioned at the beginning, transportation assistance. So we give that out every week once somebody is enrolled in the program. So it could be like a venture card. It could also be a gas card if people drive. In some cases, we've also helped get like Metro or Pace cards if that's what's more convenient. But we really want to remove that barrier so you can come to class every day and not have to worry about that extra financial burden. And then all of the programs also offer industry recognized credentials. And I would also say that they are nationally recognized credentials. So essentially it's not just, you know, a JARC certificate of completion, but it's a national credential where if, you know, somebody moved to Florida, let's say, a company would still understand and know what you're certified to do based on that national credential. And then, like I mentioned at the beginning, but one of the best features, all of these programs are of no cost to anyone who wants to participate. So you can move to the next slide, please. Perfect. So our Austin Training Center, on the very first slide, I mentioned it, but we are actually inside of Friedman Seating Company, if people know where that is. So it's Augusta and Kilbourne, if you kind of know where that is. And we actually have evening training programs there. So classes are going to run from 3 to 8 p.m. We do actually have quite a few people in program who work during the day and then come and take classes at night. So it's definitely doable if that's what somebody is looking for. And I have basically all 4 of the programs at that location. So the CNC welding, mechanical assembly, and also the bridge program. There are some assignments throughout the program that may be done virtually or be done at home. But if that happens, we'll definitely make sure that individuals have, you know, internet, laptops, whatever they need to get that done. So you can move to the next slide. Perfect. So the manufacturing bridge program, like I mentioned, that's going to be based on reading and math assessment scores. So typically, if somebody has between like a 5th to an 8th grade reading and or math level, they would start in this program before they would move into like CNC welding. So on average, it's about 12 weeks in length, but that's also because we do the open entry and open exit. So potentially somebody could, you know, get through the program in a shorter amount of time, longer amount of time, just depends, you know, how much of a refresher that they would need. So it is pretty self-paced. And obviously we want to make it, you know, relevant to manufacturing. So we're not going to teach you like all the math you ever learned in high school. It's going to be like specific to that career. So we're mainly focusing on things like converting fractions to decimals, some basic algebra, basic geometry, but you're also going to learn blueprint reading, precision measurement or metrology. So that's going to use like calipers and micrometers and things like that. And then any of the reading is also going to be focused on like manufacturing related topics to practice with. So you can move to the next slide, please. Perfect. So Our CNC program, or Computer Numerical Control, that one's currently the longest program we offer. So on average, it's about 20 weeks in length. But again, that kind of depends on, somebody's skill set, if they need less time, more time. You do have to have at least a 9th grade reading and math level. But again, if it was lower than that, you'd probably start in the bridge program to raise your score before you would move into this program. All of the technical training programs do get an OSHA 10 certification, which is just like an online training module. But then part of the reason why this program is a little longer, you actually do get 2 of the industry certifications. So they're both through the National Institute of Metalworking Skills, or NIMS. And you're going to get that certification to program, set up, and operate 2 different kinds of CNC machines. So there's a mill and a lathe, or turning is what they call it. So the nice thing is, like, we're not just teaching you how to kind of like, push the buttons on the machine so much. Like, we're also teaching you, how to actually set it up, what tools you're going to need, how to set the tools into the machine, put your metal down on the correct axis, which is why we kind of have that Cartesian coordinate system there. Because if you remember kind of that from high school, there definitely is sort of plotting that you would be doing, where you're going to tell the machine exactly how fast you want it to go, where you want it to make a cut or a hole, the different sizes, things like that. And then that's how the programming works as well. So you're going to learn to program, set up, operate the 2 different kinds of machines. So you can move to the next slide, please. Perfect. And then our shortest program that we currently offer is our mechanical assembly training program. And again, that's about, on average, 10 weeks in length, depending on somebody's skill set. You do have to have a 9th grade reading and math level as well. And then you also get the OSHA certification, and you would also get a certification through the Society of Manufacturing Engineers. And that's going to be for a certified manufacturing associate. So in that program and with that certification, you'll learn a lot of basics and uses of like hand tools, power tools. You're also going to have to know the different kinds of fasteners, couplings, and be able to identify those based on a blueprint. And there's also some, I would say, more basic introduction to CNC machining, and also some basic introduction to additive manufacturing or 3D printing. So it's a really nice credential, and really kind of makes candidates pretty well-rounded for opportunities in mechanical assembly as well. So you can move to the next slide. Perfect. And then kind of right in the middle is our welding program, which is about 14 weeks in length. Again, needing that 9th grade reading and math level. And in this program, you're getting a certification through the American Welding Society. And that's going to be specifically in MIG welding. So you can kind of see in the image there, they're using a MIG welding gun. So that's going to be the more common type you would use in production occupations, which is where we usually place people coming out of the program. But we do expose everybody a little bit to TIG and stick welding, which are other types of welding that are usually done either more in fabrication type environments, or like building trades uses stick welding mostly. So we don't certify in those, but you would at least kind of get some exposure and at least be familiar to those other welding styles. And then you can move to the next slide. Perfect. So some of the basic eligibility, we kind of mentioned this a little bit, but you do have to be at least 18 years or older to apply for the program, or to start the program, I should say. So we do at times have individuals apply for the program who are 17, and that's totally fine. You can do that, but we just wouldn't have you actually start in the training program until you turn 18. So that's an option for people. Also be eligible to work in the US. Again, like I mentioned, any kind of record of arrest or conviction is not an issue. We just can't work with any sexual offenses. And then also either being unemployed or what we call underemployed. So maybe, you're only working part-time, maybe somebody's making minimum wage and they just want to do better. They want to change careers. They want to advance in their career, whatever that may be. We are open to it. Next slide. So in addition to some of that eligibility criteria, we also look at suitability criteria. So kind of those three main areas are the 3 A's. So it's going to be attendance. So making sure that you're showing up to some of the appointments on time. If not, of course, communicating that clearly, just because, going into the manufacturing sector, if somebody's late or they don't show up, that's lost revenue for a company. So it's really, really important to make sure that everybody's on time with required classes or appointments. And then also attitude. So that's going to really kind of be more of like able to accept like feedback or, make different adjustments. So a lot of times, like in welding, for example, maybe somebody's like body position isn't quite right. So the welds aren't, coming out good. So the instructor might tell you, hey, change your stance a little bit, and, being able to kind of take that feedback and sort of like incorporate that to try to do better. And then ability isn't so much having prior manufacturing experience, but it's more of sort of like your physical ability. Because like we mentioned in a previous slide, there are definitely some physical demands for these occupations. So I would just say making sure, or checking with like your healthcare provider, like if this is something that, you think you can commit to as a career to be able to do. So you can move to the next slide. Perfect. So then this is the process for somebody who is interested in applying for the program. So you can see at the bottom, there is a website. So you would go there and select one of the next available application sessions. So typically they're going to be every Wednesday. For our West Side location, they're all going to be at 4 p.m. But we do have another session at 9 a.m. if that works better for people's schedules. But you can sign up for one of those sessions. The first Wednesday of every month, they will be in person, which is kind of nice because then you can actually get a tour of the space and you get to like meet the instructors. But every other Wednesday after that, they will be on Zoom. So the first step would be to attend one of those sessions. After that, there is an online application we'll have you complete, where it's basically just kind of like, some of your previous like education, employment history, demographic things. And then after that, we schedule a one-on-one Zoom interview. And during that interview, we really kind of want to talk to you about, why you're interested in making manufacturing a career. What are your long-term goals? What do you hope to gain out of the program? So we really just kind of want to make sure people, that we accept into the program want to do this as a career, basically. And then after that, there is that reading and math assessment that I mentioned. So typically we are having people come in for that just because it's kind of a pain to do it online. And then from there, we make a decision if we're ultimately going to accept someone or possibly not. And if we didn't accept somebody, we would still communicate that and send you some additional resources and programs and things to look into. But if we do accept somebody, like I said, typically any Monday that we're open, somebody can actually start the program. So there is some initial, paperwork, and we talk about setting goals and things like that, but then you would be starting pretty much right away. So you can move to the next slide. Perfect. Okay, so then I'm going to get into a little more some of the additional supportive services that we offer in addition to the technical training. So you can move to the next slide. So one of the nice things we offer is financial coaching for everybody. So that is either going to be, well, it's usually a combination of either like one-on-one, you and the financial coach meet, but then there's also a rotating schedule on Fridays where there's like a group financial coaching classes. But basically it's kind of like whatever you need to improve your financial life. So it's really kind of guided by the individual. So it could be a number of things. So maybe somebody is looking to better like manage money, create a budget, create a savings plan. Maybe somebody has a savings goal. They want to save up to buy a car, whatever that might be. We also talk about credit quite a bit. So kind of understanding what's on your credit report, possibly rebuilding credit. In some cases, things might come up on a credit report that are fraudulent. So it might even be like disputing things on a credit report. Because ultimately all those things, you know, once you get the job and start in the career, we want to make sure that you're able to then sort of manage the finances to sustain yourself and sustain your family once you get into the career. So you can move to the next slide. Perfect. And then we also offer employment coaching to everybody. Again, this is going to be one-on-one, but then also in small groups during those Friday rotating classes. So it's going to, again, kind of be various things that an individual might need to ultimately, you know, find a job and then hopefully keep the job as well. So that's going to be working on creating a manufacturing specific resume, also completing various mock interviews. So in addition to kind of you know, HR mock interview, we also do technical mock interviews where you're able to practice, you know, articulating what you're doing on the CNC machine during an interview, you know, how you would troubleshoot certain things. Because a lot of times they will ask those kinds of things during manufacturing interviews. Also kind of understanding like workplace culture and best practices. So a lot of times that's, you know, what do you do in a situation where, you know, your bus is running late and you're going to be late to work? Or if a situation arises where like your car breaks down and you have to get to work, you know, how do you handle some of those situations properly? And then also kind of understanding and how to manage an online job search, because there is quite a bit of online applications. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot of, you know, going in person and applying at companies so much anymore. So we kind of talk about, you know, how do you manage that? What are applicant tracking systems? How do you kind of get around those different things like that? So you can move to the next slide. Perfect. And then we also do what we call a public benefits screening with everybody. So typically this is going to be within the first few weeks of new people starting in the program. But basically we want to kind of be able to help people in the program sort of stabilize themselves during that time, because it is a full-time training program. So, I mean, it is pretty demanding. So we would hate for, you know, a situation to come up where, you know, somebody gets ill or something happens within the household, and then there's, you know, unexpected expenses or you know, hurdles to have to deal with. So we try to meet with everyone from the very beginning and see if there's ways we can help. So typically this could be things like either like health insurance, SNAP benefits, or even unemployment benefits. So maybe that's help applying or signing up or even recertifying for some of those benefits. It could also be utility or rental assistance. So like I mentioned at the beginning, and a lot of times we do have some emergency funds for things like that if needed. And then we do offer quite a few direct referrals to partner organizations for things like child care assistance, emergency shelter, or even in some cases like behavioral health support. And this is also offered ongoing. So let's say, you know, someone comes in at the beginning of the program and they don't have any of these needs. That's great. But then if something happens, like, 3 months down the line, you can still always come back and let us know and access these resources. So you can move to the next slide. Perfect. And then there's one other program I always like to mention. So this is actually separate from the technical training, and it's also a free program as well. So it's open to anybody. There's really no restrictions on, where you live or education, anything like that. But it's for individuals who kind of have an educational goal. So it could be maybe improving reading and writing skills, maybe somebody who's an English language learner, who needs some math prep, computer classes, or even GED prep. We don't actually administer the GED, but we can help, practice and prep for that. So it is a program where somebody could sign up and get matched one-on-one with a tutor. And then the nice thing about this program is you can meet one-on-one with that tutor at any location that's easy and accessible. So it could be meeting at a local library or coffee shop, whatever that might be. So this is another option for anybody generally, whether they're interested in manufacturing or not. So you can move to the next slide. Perfect. I tried to actually have one of our graduates join our session today, but obviously, they're working. So I couldn't quite get anybody, but I did have some quotes from different success stories that we've had in the past. So the first one I have is actually from Richard, who is one of our CNC graduates. He actually, I believe it was about 6 months ago, started working at Sloan Valve. And he had mentioned that he's lucky to have gotten the position. It's a large company with a lot of growth potential. He said there's so much opportunity to move around and he never gets bored. So I think that's, kind of speaking to that career map that we talked about, that, even though he's starting off as a CNC operator, he sees a lot of, opportunities to move and grow in different areas within that company. And then my second story was about Mike, who's also one of our CNC graduates. He, like a lot of the graduate or a lot of the trainees we've had in program, they're dealing with a lot of different things at home in their personal life, in their past, and a lot of different hurdles to kind of work through. So we like to highlight, despite all those different barriers, he did great and excelled. He was actually awarded our Trainee of the Month for his exceptional teamwork in the classroom. He also earned NIMS, the National Institute of Metalworking Skills credentials, and passed his technical math assessment with a perfect score. He also became one of our shift leads, which is basically one of the more senior trainees in the program. So he was able to assist new trainees and kind of serve as like a tour guide for new applicants. And shortly after that, he did accept a position at Mighty Hook as a CNC operator as well. So those are just kind of some of the different, experiences that graduates have had and, been able to, get great careers and ultimately kind of excel in those areas. And then I think the next slide is just contact information. But that's my information up top. So, feel free if there's other questions or anything that come up, you can always email at any time. But I don't know, Janelle, if there's any Q&A to address.
Yes, so okay. Thank you so much, Emily, for presenting all that information to us. That was incredible, getting to hear about everything that your organization does, the great opportunities, and then the wonderful things that previous participants have gotten to say about it. If anybody is interested in connecting with Emily or even any previous participants, please feel free to shoot your information over to myself. Emily, I will pass her information back on the screen before we wrap up as well. But I did want to open this time up for any questions and concerns, anything, comments, anything anybody tossed up. It looks like we might have a couple things that are looking to get addressed. One question somebody has is if they're interested in participating in your program, and as you mentioned, the program is completely paid for, training is good to go, but the training itself is not paid. So for somebody who might be looking to participate in your program, but is not currently working, but may not be able to necessarily afford just the training by itself without working, what might that look like for them?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we don't currently offer any kind of stipends or anything like that while somebody is in training. But kind of like I mentioned, we do, provide weekly transportation, and unfortunately, given the, rise in gas costs recently, we actually have, for people who drive, we actually have doubled up the normal amount we give out just because it's kind of crazy, how expensive it is right now. So we do try to remove that barrier at least, so there's not any additional costs. And then, like I mentioned as well, we're providing all the work gear. So whether that's steel toe boots, helmets, jackets, gloves for welders, things like that. Because ultimately when somebody goes to an interview, a lot of times for welding, they'll actually put you in a welding booth and ask you to show them your welding skills. So if you can come, prepared with all that gear, that's going to give you a big advantage as well. But I also kind of mentioned too, the nice thing, because our training program is 3 to 8. So it does go late afternoon into the evening. So we do have, I'd say probably majority of the people in our program right now, they do work during the day and then come to class in the evening, which I know is kind of, that's a long day. I get that. But it's definitely possible. And in some cases too, so class runs 3 to 8. So I know we have a few individuals right now who, they get off at 3. So they come straight from work, but, with the understanding that, okay, you'll be here by 3:30 or by 4 o'clock. And that's totally fine. As long as we know that in advance and can anticipate that, people can definitely have a little more of a flexible schedule. Or we had an individual recently who worked the night shift. So he would, come at 3 o'clock, but then he would leave closer to 6:37 so he could get to his other job. So, we're usually pretty flexible. The only thing I would preface that is, if somebody does have to miss summer class, sometimes it does prolong their time in the training a little bit longer than that average that we mentioned. But we're not going to kick someone out because they hit 20 weeks in the CNC program. If they need more time, they need more time. That's totally fine. But yeah, that's usually what we have. Individuals usually are able to work, even if it's part-time, and come to the class.
Okay. And what about anybody who may not currently have a job, but is looking for additional employment? Is that something your Career Center services can help them with once they start your program, or?
Yeah, we do have some people who they fully intend to work and do training at the same time. So usually our employment coaches can meet with individuals and kind of look through, different opportunities that are available. I will say though, most of the time, the job leads that we have are going to be, more specific to manufacturing. Maybe it's doing, polishing, grinding, or some other kind of different field. And usually those are going to be full-time opportunities. But again, if somebody is, committed to working and doing the training program, we can definitely help make that happen as well. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And to anybody who's listening, it sounds like there's opportunity through JARC if you're looking for employment during the training, but you can also absolutely reach out to us here at Austin Coming Together, and we can find you something smaller part-time that may not be immediately manufacturing related so that you can have time for that. So there are a couple pathways to that. We don't have a ton of questions. I know one of the main questions that you did touch on, and that is a regular concern regarding marijuana. And you, like you said, you already let everyone know you don't do the testing for it, but most employers do. Can you let us know what that might look like for anybody who may participate in that? Like, will most employers focus on a harm reduction process, or is it you one test and you're fired kind of situation?
So we do know of and work with a few companies that do not drug test. So usually during kind of the initial enrollment phase, I mean, we will talk about that. We have in the past had trainees who, had like a medical marijuana card. So we knew that, coming into it, that was going to be potentially a hurdle. So when it came time for job search, we definitely, made it a point to not send that individual to companies that we knew would drug test. But I mean, I will say on average, it does seem like those companies maybe do starting wage, pay it a little bit less. Okay. So that's just something to kind of be aware of. But typically, and then also too, I mean, I guess separate from marijuana, I mean, we've had other, individuals in the program who are on like different prescription medications for various things. And a lot of times in those cases, like, again, if you're kind of like upfront with the company and let them know like, hey, there's a chance I could test positive for whatever it is, and you can provide a prescription, a lot of times like they'll be kind of flexible with it if you just are pretty upfront about it. So, I mean, that's definitely something I think to consider. And I think what you were saying in terms of like a harm reduction model, I mean, I feel like it would probably depend on the case, because in some cases, if there is like an incident, like you are welding and, somehow like burn yourself really bad or something, most likely they will immediately send you for a drug test just for liability and to rule things out like that. So, I mean, I would say it's possible in a case like that, where if you tested positive for anything, they may terminate. But if it's just more of like maybe the company does like random drug testing and something came up randomly, then it might be more of like, hey, like we need to work with you to make sure this doesn't happen again. So a lot of it, I think, just depends on the company and their policies. But I would also say, I think it kind of depends on the circumstances too, if there was like an incident on the job or something like that. But I mean, it's definitely something we ask up front. And if people are just, let us know their situation, we can usually work with it. The issue becomes like when we don't know and we send someone somewhere and then all of a sudden there's a positive drug test, then it's like harder to kind of come back from that versus if we knew ahead of time what to expect. Yeah. So
in general, just make sure you are working around big, heavy equipment, and that comes with its own side effects. Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. That covers pretty much all the questions we've got right now. Is there anything, Emily, from your experience working with the program, and I guess this is more just a question, me personally, what excites you most about JARC and the access to it, any of the above?
Yeah, I feel like in the video, we touched upon it a little bit more, but I think the really nice thing about the manufacturing industry in general is anybody who's willing to really kind of commit and make this a career, like anybody can do it. Doesn't matter, your education, doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter, your prior career, whatever it is. I mean, it's very forgiving, it's very open. And I feel like it pays pretty well, especially if it's something, you're willing to commit to and continuing to learn and get, more certifications and more education. I mean, it's a great career. Like we've got a couple individuals now who do work for Friedman Seating Company who've been here for a little while. And that's exactly what they did. They went back to school. Friedman paid for their education. The one guy is their welding engineer. Another person like runs the entire welding department in terms of like hiring and staffing and figuring all those things out. So I mean, there's really great career opportunities there if it's something that you're willing to commit to and dedicate to. So I definitely encourage it. Had I known years ago, I probably would have gotten into it myself. But yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah.
Student loans are not fun to have to pay off. Thank you so much, Emily. And yes, absolutely. There's so many great possibilities and careers in manufacturing right now. So anybody who's interested, if you know of anybody who's looking for a career change, please send them my way, Emily's way. We are more than happy to get everyone as connected as possible. So big round of applause. Thank you, Emily from JARC. You are fantastic. I greatly appreciate you coming on and telling us about this. I do want to do one little quick shameless plug for our next Hub 101, which will be coming up in July. We will be joined by Defy Ventures. Let me toss that up really quickly. We will be defying the odds with Defy Ventures, who is a nonprofit focused on working with those who are returning from the justice system and are looking for career readiness and entrepreneurship opportunities. That will be Tuesday, July 19th from 12:30 to 1:45, and as always on Facebook Live. One last quick thank you so much, Emily. You're fantastic. And if you are interested in connecting with Jane Addams Resource Corporation, Emily, or myself, please feel free. I will put Emily's email out. So if you registered for this event, I will put JARC contact information on the recording and send that out to everybody. Otherwise, you can reach out to us here at the Austin Community Hub. And that is it. Thank you so much. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.